Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scary Stories We Tell, a podcast where, well, we talk about spooky, weird, true crime stuff. It's just kind of a catch-all. We're here to talk about weird stuff. On this episode, we're going to be talking about haunted states once again, but the voices you're going to be hearing are not the voices that had been covering this for the last, almost 4 years now. You're going to hear two voices that are normally spending time talking about weird shit on YouTube, primarily YouTube for the most part. Those two voices being Emma.
Hello.
And Dustin.
Hello.
And yeah, on this episode, the three of us are going to be talking about haunted states, focusing primarily on, Dustin's favorite state of all time. It's such a good, they can't see you. He's putting his thumbs down.
Hand gestures don't work.
Right. Not in this medium.
We can't upset a whole state, Dustin.
Dustin might, but I'm not going to. I've never had a problem with the lovely state or people of Iowa. But hey, I also didn't grow up in Nebraska, and apparently anyone who grew up in Nebraska has a bone to pick with the state of Iowa. So, I mean, it's a football thing, right, Dustin?
It's football, all around sports. Yeah.
At any time,
yeah.
Here's the thing: Texas and Oklahoma, same thing, and it's
neighboring states.
It's neighboring states, right? Like not every state was Civil War. Not every reason to hate a state is like Kansas and Missouri, because that is Civil War related. But yeah, look, I moved to Nebraska, so I have nothing against Iowa, and Emma lives nowhere near Iowa.
I'm so far removed from this.
This is not my fight. I have no dog in this fight.
It looks so petty from over here.
To be fair, there is a state and city that borders where you live that I think has the same problem with, where you live for a similar reason, just because of proximity, right? Like, how many jokes are made about where you live by people who live there to not give away where you live?
Not really.
People in the big city, come on.
I overhear other people saying stuff to other
That's where
people.
we can afford a house. Why would we hate this place now?
Most people are moving out of the city.
Yeah.
They're coming back here.
Yeah. Well, I guess, to be fair, we live in one of the two cities in the state that we live in that borders Iowa. And Iowa Iowa has some big cities, but similarly to the state that we live in, Dustin, this state only really has two big cities. Iowa has like Des Moines, Davenport, and like Cedar Rapids, and that's kind of it. Like it's not any bigger of a state than Nebraska, I wouldn't say, right? And I think probably we get confused for Iowa just as much as they get confused for us, because again, no. For most people, if you live on one of the coasts, we are an unintelligible mass of states.
The middle.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. If you asked me to pinpoint where you were on a map, I could not.
Right. And that's okay. Like, that's
and
perfectly
that is the
fine.
Failing of the American education system.
Fair. But Iowa is the 26th largest state in total area and the 31st most populous out of 50. So, batting in the lower half. Again, like, that's the thing about the Midwest is, some states have more people than others, really is what it feels like. And on the states that we live in, it's like two cities and that's it. And like the rest is just rural and very rural and a lot of corn and a lot of flat and a lot of, in between here and Des Moines is literally like jack shit. After Omaha, there's nothing. So, and if you drive,
I have a question.
What?
So with the list, I'm assuming the last on the list is Alaska. What's like the one after Alaska?
Oh, in populace?
Yeah.
So that's funny because Alaska is not the last.
Really?
No. The last is, again, there are four beneath it, but these are territories, I believe is what they're classified as, so not states. The last is actually Wyoming.
Huh.
And that's not surprising, Dustin. You and I have friends that lived in Wyoming, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm like,
that was like half the population.
Yeah, as in like them too. There's half of four. So it's actually Wyoming, and then up in your neck of the woods, 51st is Vermont, and then also up in your neck of the woods is District of Columbia, which sure. And then, right, everybody, yeah, fucking sure. And then 49 is Alaska.
Okay.
Then followed in our neck of the woods by North Dakota and South Dakota. So, 4 of these that have been mentioned are all like in the same spot or touching one another. And we live in a state that is also touching one of them with South Dakota. So, because we share a pretty long length border with South Dakota. So,
but I definitely think that like as you get further back in the list, when you have less people in an area, I think there tends to be creepier shit happening.
Well, that's the thing. So yeah, like Emma just mentioned, we've all brought to the table something, and we're going to talk about those things, and then we'll talk about it the way we normally do this, which is we kind of tell the story and then we talk about it. That's the way we've done it before, because I'm technically the only one who's ever done one of these before. And I did these a lot with Jess, but Jess and I have not recorded in a while, not for any specific reason, just because, hey, things happen. And you know what? It's a new year and some people are busy and some people aren't. And I'm not as busy as Jess, which means we can do one of these together. And hey, Iowa feels like a good choice because, again, like we've already mentioned, it's not a state that people necessarily have a lot of preconceived notions about unless you live here. And then, I think that's also a good thing because, like you mentioned, Emma, the range of things can be very different from the places that are, again, older America like the East Coast or newer America like the West Coast. So this is kind of an interesting middle ground as well. So on that note, Emma, I'm going to kick it to you first. What are you going to tell us about Iowa that's less specific than this is the 21st most populous state, just rattling off bullshit information that actually doesn't matter?
I think that could be an entertaining podcast to someone.
Yeah, that's like a TikTok video, like, tell me the 5 most populated states, bro. Go. New York. I've seen, I don't know, those, like, I don't want to like drag anybody, but those two dudes. If you
guess it, you get $20.
Oh yeah, like, tell me a song that starts with M. Oh, I got that one. Yeah, like that money's just gonna go back on the table and you guys are gonna make more content. That's not what we're trying to do here. So Emma, regale us with some stories of Iowa.
Yeah, so what I want to talk about today is the Edinburgh Manor. I stumbled across this when I was looking up, so obviously, I'm like, what are the most haunted places in Iowa? What are the creepiest locations? So Edinburgh Manor, it was actually first built in 1850, and it was considered, quote unquote, a poor farm, which is apparently very common around that time. And the idea behind a poor farm is that, the less fortunate people would be provided with shelter and food in exchange for work and labor. The only issue is that it wasn't just, people that did not have money. A lot of other people got grouped into that as well, like disabled, elderly, and also people with severe mental illness. And so getting all of that, in one location to work together for survival is, I think, an interesting setup. But yeah, during that time, there were over 230 documented deaths on the property. And I think that is a really good setup for for a scary movie. Like that, I can imagine like that being the synopsis. But Chris, you've seen more scary movies than me. What would happen?
I mean, here's the thing already, like, you're like, and then like almost 300 people have died. It's like, what the fuck's going on already? Like, you're already, here's the thing, like anything like this, I'm already like, why, how could I?
I mean, it probably just comes down to poor management and
all the time, though. It's like every time we hear one of these kinds of stories, this is how it starts, right? It's like, oh, they just weren't managing. And it's like, well, if we're not managing these places, what are we managing? Right? Like,
right. I mean, I think it's safe to say that like a lot of them, since many people did come through already being elderly or having mental illness, I think it's safe to say that, for some people, it could have just been old age. For some people, it could have been, unfortunately, taking their own lives. And so I don't want to say that it's just, just poor management, but it's hard to say like what the health conditions were. It's hard to say like did fights break out amongst people. But I think what was maybe the saddest part is that whoever didn't have family to be returned to were just buried on the property.
Yikes.
Right? So with that lovely setup, the original building was then demolished and then replaced in 1910. And then it opened in 1911 as the Edinburgh Manor, which was, you want to guess?
What it became?
Yeah. What did they turn it into?
Oh, I'm sure it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Like a bed and breakfast? No, it's probably too big to be that, right?
I don't know. What do you think?
Wedding venue.
I mean, it's probably like a hotel, right?
Try mental institution.
Oh,
we get
good.
mental institution up on the board.
Of course.
Mental institution. Yeah, I mean, who would have guessed?
Right.
Obviously not you two, but I don't blame you. So the Edinburgh Manor opened in 1911 as a mental institution. And it was like that for a very long time. However, obviously due to not so safe conditions and some not so good practices in the 2000s, the residents were moved from the property after it was deemed, and this is a quote, dangerous and not conducive to having disabled people live there.
And this was in the mid 2000s?
It was in the 2000s that they were finally moved from this atrocious place.
Over 100 years later?
Basically, yeah.
Oh my God. Boy. And I don't want to hear people say, oh, we take care of the mental health of this country. Oh, yeah, do we?
I mean, at least not back then. I mean, and
what about the other 90 fucking years? What about the other 90 fucking years?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to explain away when it's like, and then in the mid 2000s, like, that was like 15 years ago.
I mean, first things first is like, if I had learned that like the mental institution I was going to used to be a poor farm where 200 plus people have already died and 80 of them were buried on the property, I don't know. I don't think that that's great for my mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't be, but it can't be worse. It can't be worse
to having disabled people. But that's the thing. I love that it was called blatantly dangerous. And so it just makes me wonder, like, how, like, it doesn't really go into, like, what ways was it dangerous, but I'm assuming structurally unsound.
Well, that's just fucking insane. Like, again, if you sit here and think to yourself, all right, the idea here is to provide a place for these people to be. And I'm saying these people as in, like, you couldn't just treat it at home because, again, like this has not necessarily shown to be a thing that works clearly for a number of reasons. One of them being because the system was never in place to actually
just take all the mental health people and put them somewhere else.
And then let's also forget to take care of them while they're there. Like, what is going on? But it's like the thing is, I'm not getting mad about this because like this is the only one that's happened. It's like this is just one in a long list of, if not all of these sanatoriums, any of these kinds of places, because for the most part, the story is the same. We made this place for all these people to go, and then we stuck them there and forgot about it. It's like, what in the holy hell we think is going to happen in these places? Like a lot of institutional abuse, and then people fucking dying and being buried in fucking nameless graves. And then what happens there? Well, if you believe like we do, they're probably haunted as fuck, right? That's what happens next. You wanted me to answer? There's your answer. Now you're going to tell us this is a haunted fucking place, guys.
Well, I actually, there was one other thing. What do you think they wanted to then turn it into? After all of the disabled people, all the mentally ill were moved to someplace hopefully significantly better.
Knowing this system, it was probably marginally better. I'm going to go out on a limb here and be a real piece of shit because it would strike me that the people who are doing this are probably real pieces of shit, like a fucking retirement home.
That would have been hilarious in the worst way.
Elementary school.
Also hilarious in the worst possible way.
No, turns out that there were plans to potentially, they were like talking this through, like, oh, what can we turn this into? You want to know? Chris, you were so close. You should have said it later. Bed and breakfast.
Oh boy. Yeah, but
you want to know why they didn't? But you want to know why they didn't. Not because of the horrible history of the place. No. It's because the cost would have been too high to repair it because the building was just straight up unsafe. Like you could not, it was unlivable.
Wow. To get it up to code, you mean?
To get it up, it would have cost too much money to get it up to code in order for it to be a bed and breakfast.
Them's is good business people right there. So what's really funny though, and like, here's the funny thing about this entire situation. Like, can I just say low key that if a bed and breakfast is haunted, I'm way more interested in going there.
Oh,
like,
fair.
Like, that's the thing. Like, can we just like take a pause here? Because it being a bed and breakfast makes the most sense because like the best kinds of these places are like, this is a haunted bed and breakfast.
Oh yeah, it's a gimmick. It's part of the lore.
Yeah, this ghost is, shaking your fucking bed at night or some shit like.
There for the thrills. There to test your bravery.
I went to an Airbnb in northern Missouri. The woman who owns it is really nice. If anyone wants to go there, DM me. I'll tell you the place because it's fun. It's like in like an old like farmhouse where like the people who used to like take care of the farm were, and they like redid it into this like cute little Airbnb that 3 people can stay at. But it's haunted. Apparently, like it's fucking haunted. And she's like, I don't tell people that. And it's like, I don't tell people that because some people want to know and some people don't. And it's like, that's why I won't say where it is. It's just in Missouri somewhere because I don't want someone to be like, well, is it this, and this? But that's the thing. Like, it, for me, is a benefit for it to be haunted. But at the same time, people out there like, I won't stay at a haunted place as well.
I don't know if I would seek it out.
Would you not stay there if someone was like, da, 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 and it's haunted?
It would have to be like a really like beautiful place that like nothing like malicious has been documented as well. Like the only way that
you could be the first.
Yeah, thanks.
You could. I'm just saying theoretically.
Anything is possible.
True.
I definitely, I would not go alone. That's for sure. Fair. Maybe with like, if a bunch of friends wanted to, but like, I don't think I'd be able to sleep very well. I'd be paranoid the whole night. I'd be like, did I see something out of the corner of my eye? I can't turn off that part of my brain. And I'm not good at just like vibing with the idea of potentially like having something in the room with me while I'm vulnerable and asleep.
That's fair.
So I very much applaud people who do, the paranormal investigations and they go to places like this, because that to me, like, and I've said this on the podcast before, but like, I am so on the fence when it comes to like this type of stuff because I've never had these experiences. But that being said, just because I can be skeptical does not mean that I'm not scared shitless regardless. Like,
I have those things that have happened to me are
that's the thing though. It's like, you don't have to believe it fully for the concept of it to still be terrifying and for it to fuck with you.
And also, to be fair, it doesn't care if you believe.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, that's the other thing. Like, and that's the thing, like, people who don't believe, that's fine. But if it exists, it doesn't, like, you could say the same thing about God or what, creation or whatever. Like, God doesn't give a shit if you don't believe because God exists either way. Like, right. And that is the way I look at all of these things. Like, a lot of these things don't give a shit if you don't believe. And to be fair, some of the people that don't believe are the ones who get fucked by these things the worst. Because I know, but not like that. But to be fair, like, because I know, Dustin, you are a lot more of a skeptic than Emma and I, and like we've had that. Just if you want proof, go listen to the discussion you and I did many moons ago. But like, I also appreciate that you are a skeptic and you're willing to be a skeptic unironically. You're not just doing it just because.
Right.
We're on like the full spectrum here. I love that.
I would like to stay in places like that because mainly just to see what the gimmick they're selling is. But I'd sleep like a baby.
Right.
I'd be fine.
Right.
Oh, I know you would.
Right. But then that's the thing. Like, if nothing happens, like if nothing were to happen, like how would that make you feel? Would that be like, well, there's one more check in that box, or is it like
you'd be disappointed?
Me?
No, I was saying, well, yeah, sure, but like Dustin,
But Dustin's a skeptic. Is a skeptic disappointed if they go somewhere haunted and nothing happens?
I wouldn't expect anything to happen.
That's why I feel like you can't be disappointed.
I feel like a very small part of you would have been like, man, that could have been cool.
I mean, yeah, if something
right? Okay.
Something totally blew me away. It'd be That would be cool to be like, oh, wow. I mean, it's probably, and I'm not saying this to be difficult, but if anything did happen, it'd probably be something orchestrated by the people
Wow.
that are.
I'm not saying this would be difficult, but
But
here's the thing, though, and I was thinking about this, Dustin, because I knew that given the three of us broaching this topic tonight, because not saying SurrealTube doesn't, but like SurrealTube calls for a very different thing, and like
Oh, yeah.
this is like some of this is like as I know what Dustin's going to talk about, and it's not that it's not this, but like it isn't this. It's a different kind of this. I think the only thing realistically that would make you a believer, Dustin, and I'm just spitballing here, so tell me how wrong I am. It would have to be something immensely and deeply personal. Like not something where you like go to a fucking place that's already haunted and something happens there. And I'm not saying that something happening there wouldn't be something that would like make you go like, whoa. And like some of the people I know that do this professionally, that's what happened to them. But I think for you, someone like yourself, like again, someone who I consider a very close friend, like I do Emma, like it would have to be something immensely and deeply personal where you would have to be like incontrovertible in your mind that this is someone important to me reaching out from the other side. And
Yeah,
like,
it would have to rattle me to my core.
right, which would have to be something like deeply personal.
Yep.
So like and like again, like we're all adults right now at various stages in our lives, having had various stages of grief things happen to us, both friends passing away, family members, and like I haven't ever had a deeply personal thing happen to me. I already am. I consider myself a believer, not a skeptic, but a believer with a healthy dose of skepticism, because I think that's the right way to do it. Me personally, is to not believe everybody, but I mean, again, you can't not believe somebody. But like I've never had none of these things that ever happened to me have been personal. They've just been like a weird noise or a thing, and like because Emma, you and I have been podcasting together since a lot of these things have happened, like, and they've been like, and those, a couple things happened before, but a lot of the things have happened since I've been doing the show, but they're not like, I don't know. It's not like I felt my grandfather reach out to me. It's all like very just like a weird thing I can't explain that I could explain every other one of these things, but this one. And like I said, I'm a believer in this stuff, but at the same time, I'm kind of like yourself, Dustin. Like, if I get to the end of my life and nothing like this has ever happened, I might be like, well, I'm kind of disappointed. Because, like, the thing that would really make me a real, like, cement it permanently would be something happening that's, like, deeply personal to me. And I'm not wanting that to happen by any stretch of the imagination, because that would mean that someone in my life is no longer there, or has passed away or something. Because again, like I believe that the emotional charged nature, I mean, like the reason this fucking place is haunted, right, Emma? Like, why is this place haunted? It's because it's an emotionally charged place where people were dying.
Absolutely.
Like, and that's what I believe a moment like that would be like something like that happening. And I don't want that to happen to anybody in my life right now. So I'm okay with those things not happening. And it's just it being some weird ass thing that I see out of the corner of my eye is a lot more exciting than I felt my friend who just died come into my bedroom and sit at the end of my bed and tell me that they love me. Like, I don't want that, because I know what that means in relation to the thing happening. So that's all I'm saying. But I
think we're the healthy scale,
Yeah, I think so.
We have Dustin on the skepticism side. We have you on the I've definitely had like the weird experiences side, and there's like me in the middle where I'm like I've been exploring spirituality, but I've never had an experience like that. I've had a lot of serendipitous moments that I think are I think what a lot of other people that are skeptics would refer to as coincidences in terms of like life events and potential signs, but like not anything ever particularly ghost related. I see it much more as a being connected to the universe.
So,
Dustin, I haven't done a tarot reading for you, have I?
Oh boy! So. Oh God! Oh no, dude! Do you know how many? Do you know this story about Emma with the tarot card readings?
I've heard about it.
Topic.
I mean, but that's the thing. We have never done an episode like this, the three of us.
It's true. So now it's all coming out.
I mean, and that's the funny thing. To your point, like you've heard the stories about how a host of this show got a tarot reading, and then all of a sudden they weren't a host for this show for a while. Yeah, it's a wild story.
Sometimes tarot tells you what you need to hear,
It's true.
not necessarily what you want to hear, and it's a great mirror for self-reflection. But I thoroughly enjoy like the intuiting process. If we have time and if you want, not necessarily on the podcast, but we could tonight.
Oh God, you don't want it on the podcast. You might want it, but you don't want it on the podcast. I made the mistake of having it on the podcast for all the world to hear.
I let Arthur read for me on the podcast at least like 3 times.
I know, but yeah, but you are also still you. Don't forget, you know. I mean,
What do
I
you
don't.
think it's gonna say?
To Emma, who knows? That's the problem with tarot.
I pull the card and it actually just like reveals like your deepest, most embarrassing secret. It's like, oh no, it's the deep, embarrassing secret card.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, again, to your point, we are all on a very good scale with one another in terms of the belief system. And that's the thing, Dustin, I think before we go any further, just to clarify for the audience, because again, Emma and I had done these episodes before, but given that, again, you would have to go back and find the episode of you and I talking to hear it. Quick rundown on your personal belief scale.
In terms of like paranormal,
Yeah.
And I mean, paranormal, spiritual, religion.
it's
To me, I kind of see it all like wrapped into like one.
I mean, for me, it's all stories of entertainment or comfort or whatever. That's really it.
All of it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair.
We're just another species on the planet, Chris.
Dustin, this is the way a cult starts. You know that? Guess someone's gonna be like, I really like this guy's message. Where can I like listen? I mean, you do. I mean, if you grew your hair out, it kind of Christ-like.
Yeah.
Ooh, I could see it.
I would follow you more than I would follow somebody from 3,000 years ago. I mean, I'm not saying like give me some flavor aid and I won't make sure it's not poisoned, but
But
I might not check it immediately.
Not poison, just tequila.
Yeah, okay, fair. But that's the thing. I mean, to your point, like in a lot of ways, like I agree with you. I mean, I agree with the idea of like this is all just in a lot of ways, like we're just another fucking, like you said, we're just another fucking species looking for a way to explain things. We,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
unlike a lot of the other, all of them, we have a language that we understand, and that has allowed us to craft stories. But I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that animals don't have that because we don't know what we don't know, but there's more than 0% chance that they have their own similar ideas about things. So, you know, it's again, we're the only species that is self-aware enough to know that we know we're asking questions about ourselves. But, you know, that has led us down some very dark fucking roads as a species.
yeah.
But I mean, to your point, Emma, like I think it's healthy to have 3 very complementary spaces of attack doing something like this. Because like you want 3 people saying the same shit? No.
But like I think what makes this work is that regardless of what we all believe ourselves, we're also all open-minded. Like, you know, Dustin, if something were to happen to you, like that, you know, you could not explain, I don't think you would just outright deny that it ever happened. You would probably still not know what to think of it, but you would be open-minded to the possibility of it maybe being something that you could not explain with science.
I could accept the fact that something couldn't be explained at that point in time, but I would try really hard.
Try.
Emma, no, Dustin is like
No,
hard. He's like
I get
hard
that.
set.
No, but
I
what
remember
I'm saying is that would you entertain the idea for a second if you ran through all the scenarios just based off the amount of knowledge that you had in that moment? If something happened that you could not explain away with science or psychology or whatever, would you then say maybe it was maybe something spiritual? I feel like you wouldn't.
Sorry
be
for the long pause, but I don't know. I don't know if I could.
I've asked him this.
Interesting.
I've asked him this question before, Emma.
Well, now I'm really curious. About
He's a true. Dustin is a true skeptic. Like
The closest thing I could ever accept to something like from the beyond is alien life, not little green men, but universe is a big place.
Sure.
So,
I don't
like-
even consider that like paranormal though.
So like little green mangs. I just wanted to get a laugh out of little green mangs, but a little green man. But here's the thing though, because like that's why I said the thing about it being deeply personal, Emma, because like that's how deep I think Dustin is. Like that's like
I
how
see.
seated. Yeah, like but that's like what I mean. Like that is, but that thing. Like I think to say that for you is one thing, but I think for anybody, right? Like anybody, if that happened to anyone, I think anyone would have a hard time overlooking it and being like, that's something else. But like, that's the thing. It would have to be deeply personal to where it's like, there's no way. You would have to be in like a room by yourself and like nothing else. Like nobody knows anything. Like you wouldn't be like a fucking medium or something because they could know.
Yeah, I'd have to have some sort of like Obi-Wan apparition
Right.
that looks like my grandpa. And I'd be like, oh, got me.
Right. Like, and that's the thing.
So, but question then, Dustin. If I do a reading for you and I tell you something that otherwise I would not have known, how are you going to feel about that? Are you going to think that like Chris like texted it to me or something?
No, I would never do that.
So, so I've had a palm reading before. And so that's my only experience with that. But the person spoke in generalities that could be true for anybody.
Sure.
Like you have family. Yes, I do. I have family. And they just start.
Wow, dude, way to throw all those palm readers right into the same bus again.
It's
be
almost like
fair-
playing 20 questions.
To
Right.
be fair, palm reading is in
Cold
it of
reading.
itself like a methodology.
It's cold
It's-
reading.
It's like the specific, I don't know much about palm reading, but what I do know is like there are specific lines. Those lines are all labeled. And so like you can see those lines on your hand. Like you could Google like, what are these lines and what does it mean when they look like this? And there are set answers. And so because it's not like they're just looking at your hand and gazing into your past or your future. Like they're literally looking at what your hand looks like and basically going off of the list in their mind of what these well-known symbols in palm reading allude to. So it's less of like it could be general, it could mean anything. Like there's like one specifically that relates to like how many children you are going to have. And like there's people that are like, I'm asexual and I never want to have kids. And a reader just told me I'm going to have 5 kids. And it's like, well, that's what your hand looks like. That's all it means, is that that's what your hand looks like. So I don't know how I feel about palm reading specifically, because again, when you have a methodology like that and people can like prove certain things to not be true, just by saying like, oh, well, I'm past the age that I can have children and I only had 2. You said I was going to have 7. But like, there are ways to disprove that, but I do think that there are other means of divination that are less focused on a methodology like that and more focused on intuitiveness and being able to intuit. And I mean, we can talk about this later because we got to get back to what we were originally talking about. But being able to intuit, I mean, it's for me personally, and maybe it's different for other people, but when I pull a card and I know the symbols of the card or I read the description of a card, I think for a moment and then I kind of just word vomit, and whatever comes to mind, I don't really go based off of like what I know about a person. I sort of just say what comes to mind and I word vomit for as long as words want to vomit. And then I go, did any of that make sense?
Well, how
And,
much
like-
of tarot is power of suggestion?
That's a great question. And
So,
I mean, I
You
read
speak
for
these things
myself
to
too.
somebody, yeah, and then people, they might walk away and be like, yeah,
Power positive.
that's
thinking,
going to
right?
happen. Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
again,
that's manifestation, right? I mean, it's this.
Mhm.
It's,
oh yeah,
It's. I mean, they go hand in hand, right? I mean, I think they didn't used to, but they do now. Like, it's more the discussion is being had more about manifestation as well now. But like, some of it is
But
like
that's
the
also-
power of positive thinking,
that's also just one aspect of it. I mean,
right?
sure, you can ask tarot about your future, but there are so many things you can ask tarot about. I mean, obviously, you can ask tarot about your past. That's something that can't be changed. And those readings, especially for people that I did not know their past, they always tell me how accurate they are. And I don't know, maybe they're lying to me, but I'm not lying to them. But maybe they want to save my feelings. I don't know.
That's, to be fair, I've never had you do anything other than like that forward one. That your notorious tarot reads are always future bound.
Well,
tarot.
that's because that's always what you wanted to know. It's always
just
been, like,
me.
a current situation.
To be fair, my life has not been the one changed by your tarot reads, so I can sleep soundly at night. But that's the thing. I mean, to your point, like in a lot of ways, some of it is just like, this is it. Like you said, like how much of this is just, I was already there anyways, and this is just the universe giving me that 1% more. And sometimes you're at 99%, and sometimes you're at 84%, and it's just one more. Like sometimes it doesn't need to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And we sit here and joke about it, but it wasn't even in the situation that we're joking about any more than it ever would be for anybody who's hopefully going into this as not going to say an adult, but someone who is able to think through things rationally and doesn't just make decisions based on cards. Like you said, like you can't just make a decision like that anyway.
The way that I use tarot for myself when I want to clarify a situation that I'm going through, or I want to learn more about something from the past for myself, it, as I said before, it's more about guidance and reflection than it is about telling the future. You know, it can tell you what to potentially expect, but at the end of the day, like, you are in control of your path. And like, if you decide that like that's not the future that you want, you can make choices that take you away from that. Like, I feel like people have a very like, and I did too before I got into tarot. I had a very different view of like what tarot and what divination is, because of how it's presented in media. But for me, it's much more about the advice and the guidance and the reflection than it is about the future telling. But as I said before, like there are some serendipitous moments that like I can't explain, like how crazy like cards start to echo each other out of nowhere. Like, and I use multiple decks. Like it's cool. Dustin, we're gonna do a poll for you. Anyway, back to Iowa. Come 2012, guess what? It was open to paranormal investigations.
Of course. I mean,
what else were they going to do with it?
I mean, to be fair, it is condemned for all people that are disabled. So as long as you're going in,
can live there,
right?
Like nothing good other than if they just took the place down, which like I guess they don't want to do because it's a historical building at this point. Like.
Just can't live there. You just can't live there, but you can go in there all you want. Okay.
So, of course, they do have tours where they talk about the past, the history. There is like a website as well where they document some of the evidence that they have. And there's like one picture that I want to show you guys that I think is pretty cool. Before we get into that, I just wanted to go over like the types of spirits that are like the most commonly seen. So it starts with on the first floor. Most commonly, there is a little girl that is heard giggling, singing, playing in the halls. Apparently, her name is Susie.
So that would have to be someone from the farm days, right?
Most likely.
Okay, because that's the other thing I want to like figure out. Like, let's as you go through these, like that's has to figure out. Well, that has to be. Well, that has to be right. Like,
well, during I believe an EVP session, she told investigators that she was dropped off there. Right?
Would you have been dropped off at a farm?
I mean, I think like a lot of parents that couldn't take care of their children, you know. Where else are they gonna go? Or maybe she was what they probably would have referred to as a disturbed child, and it could have been the asylum days. Like,
what we just call a child, a disturbed child, or just a child. I mean, fair, but like I assume child, you mean like someone less than the age of 10? Like they have someone that young at this place as an institution.
And I mean that's what it seems to be.
Okay,
I think
I just assumed you couldn't. But again,
oh no, you absolutely. I mean, it depends on the place, but I mean, this place does not seem to have many regulations. So I feel like if a kid got dropped off there, what are they going to do? Turn the child away? Or are they going to say, okay, now here's your very unsafe bedroom?
Yeah, condemned even.
But yeah, so that's Susie. And then there is also another spirit on the first floor who is a man that is believed to have committed suicide by hanging himself with a bedsheet in the janitor's closet. And I'm going to guess that's probably Asylum Days.
Yeah, I'm going to assume as well.
Right? That feels much more asylum-y.
Right.
But yeah, and then we get to the second floor. So one thing is that there's a toy fire truck and it's said to like move throughout the building. And obviously, I'm sure the skeptic in Dustin is going, well, they're holding tours there, so somebody's moving it. Duh.
Be a drafty building.
Those drafts are carrying that fire truck a long way.
I mean, to be fair, though, if you were just like walking through the hallway at night and you saw this like fire truck like slowly creep like down the hall.
Get out of here. I see you moving that
would be
thing.
horrifying.
Right?
I mean, that
or would you be like, well, actually, the building is on a slight tilt. Here, let me take out my level on my iPhone so you can see.
That is the question. Like, what would happen if this shit, you'd be like, I'm fucking out of here either way.
I'm also more than willing to say, like, there can be alternative explanations. But regardless,
I'm shitting my pants.
Scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, in the moment, you'd be like, is somebody there? Like,
come out. I know you're
playing
here.
with the truck.
Or the alternative is there's somebody hiding behind a corner and they have like an invisible like string and they're like slowly pulling the truck.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. Trying to grab it, just pull it away. Fucking fishing line. Jesus Christ.
And another thing that happened on the second floor, so a little backstory. So the current owner spent a night in the room 200. And he felt as if somebody was squeezing his big toe, which is interesting. It's a very specific feeling, but that's what he's claimed. So he stayed in this room overnight. And while he was staying there, he felt that somebody was squeezing his toe. And then much later on, his nephew and a friend investigated the room. They were like budding, paranormal investigators. And they got an EVP reading that said, I grabbed you. Ooh, horrifying.
I grabbed your toe. I just like the idea this guy's like, I know what it feels like to have my big toe grabbed. And this was that feeling.
By spirit.
This spirit grabbed my big toe. Like, okay. I mean, the idea that this person's like, I know what that feels like I think we all do, because that's not a thing that anyone is doing.
I think anyone can say that they know what being squeezed feels like, and you can assign that to any body part. It's not a feeling I've ever had out of nowhere. Have you ever felt that?
I have never felt anyone squeeze my big toe out of nowhere. What about you, Dustin?
Should have stubbed my toe.
Sure.
On the bedpost.
I
wasn't asking you to explain it away.
I believe he was in bed laying down and out of nowhere he felt that sensation. So I've never felt that type of sensation.
Looked down and saw someone just sucking on his toe.
Cursed. So very
beyond fucking.
You have said so many cursed things throughout this entire evening, and most of them are not on the recording, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I mean, this one deserved to not be, and yet it is, so there you go. I mean, what else is... Why? Can I ask a theoretical question? Sure. If it is a ghost, why would the ghost be grabbing your big toe? Like, what?
I don't know. I bet there were a lot of weird people with a lot of weird fixations that stayed there.
It's a Quentin Tarantino ghost. That's what it is. I really just like your feet. I really like your feet.
Dan Schneider.
Like, goes over to your ear and it's like licking it. Oh, yeah. I like your feet. You want a model for me? So fucking, that's some cursed shit right there. I mean, hey, you know what? Ghosts, don't want to yuck any paranormal yums.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are there any other ghosts in this building?
That is...
Grabbing anything else?
Yeah, actually, believe it or not. In the basement, notably, there is a potentially malevolent spirit. And I love this. People have referred to him, not that he named himself, but people refer to him as the Joker.
I thought you were going to say, I really was hoping you were going to say something funny like Yank Dong. They've named him. His name's Yank Dong. Why did they name him that? I don't have any idea, but that's his name, Yank Dong.
There are stories. Yeah.
The Joker. Wow. Good. Way to co-op something cool. Yeah.
But Thank
Why
God
is he
didn't
called
name
the
himself
Joker?
that.
Yeah, right. Ugh, it's not
So-
just a phase, Mom. God.
But apparently, he wanders the basement and appears in many of the rooms. Supposedly, he was held in a small cell that was down there,
Okay.
and eventually he had hung himself. That being said, now as a spirit, he has been known to throw dishes and cause a general sense of dread, which, to be fair, I think I also would feel a general sense of dread if dishes started flying at me out of nowhere.
But here's the question: Is he called? He's called the Joker because he throws stuff.
I guess they didn't say why they're called. Why
He's
he's
so
called
silly.
the Joker.
Yeah,
I
he's
know
a
it is
silly-
really
he's a
silly.
Billy boy, like what the fuck? Like such a weird nickname for a ghost.
I
Like,
know. I'm not a fan of it. I got to admit, it really kind of cheapens the vibe.
they're not. They should have named him the Midnight Toker. You know, Dustin. That's the dad joke for those of you listening who like Steve Miller. Okay, so at the end of the day, this is now a double heavy negative energy place that has now become a paranormal hotspot, right? Super haunted. I mean,
Yeah.
right. Go. This is like this is a known thing, obviously.
Well, glad you said that, because the last thing I wanted to mention is that this was actually featured on Ghost Adventures.
Oh,
season 11,
yes. Oh,
episode
yes.
1.
Uh, you know what we should do on Patreon, or if we ever had a Patreon,
Just
we
like
should
watch
watch
Ghost
Ghost.
Hunters.
Well, yeah, because
Ghost
we've
Adventures, Ghost Hunters.
talked
I
about
would.
plenty of these places. Like I
I
was
would
gonna
love
ask,
to.
like, is
I'm
our dear
down.
friend Mr. Bagan's gone there? Listen here, fucking ghosts. Anyone want to come and punch me in the dick? Like, I mean, can I just point out on the record here, Zach Bagans does not need to intimidate ghosts. That's the wrong thing to do. If you talk to any ghost hunter, the last thing you're supposed to do is ask the ghosts to hurt you in any way.
And
So-
yet Shane Madej from BuzzFeed Unsolved,
I can't. Hey,
he actively is like, kill me right
Yeah.
now. You
He
can
just-
do it, right?
he does it in a much more millennial way than Zach Bagans. Zach,
absolutely.
Zach Bagans has some like very unbridled Gen Xer energy. My Jinko jeans and my cool hair and my
I
glasses.
know
that
Shane
are
is
for
like, it would
double
be pretty
vision.
cool if you killed me.
Yeah, like he's just a millennial who wants to die from ghosts so that, you know, just cuz.
It's
For
like
the clicks.
he is so. I love how he is like very much like, I've gone on all of these adventures and like, yeah, weird shit's happened, but it's not ghosts, it's not real. I've told them to kill me, they haven't killed me. So
And have they gone here?
he's like,
have they gone here?
He threatened like the Annabelle doll.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that one.
I love it.
I mean, hey, you know what? If nothing has happened, then I guess he's right. So I would
Or maybe
go to
it's
this
just to
place.
spite.
I mean, that's fair.
Would you?
I would, yeah.
China's-
I mean, that's the
I
thing.
mean,
You know, that's the thing. I mean, this is close enough to Dustin and I that we could go here for like a weekend. It's only probably like 5 hours away. You know?
anything with a potential malicious spirit is something that I want nothing to do with, because, like I said, you know, whether or not you believe in this as a whole, God forbid that it is real. And then you go there and something negative becomes attached to you and you struggle to remove that attachment.
It's 5.5 hours away, Dustin. We have 5.5 hours, baby. We can go. You want to go?
I mean, you
On the way to New Jersey.
yeah, it is.
I support you guys. All I'm saying is I would not choose to go to a place with malicious energy because I have enough shit in my life. I don't need to add to it. Why would I add to the bullshit that already occurs in my day? Why would I add to the negativity? It's one thing to be like, yeah, you want to go to this bed and breakfast and they have like this cute like little girl ghost that goes around and like pulls tiny pranks. Like, that's fine. Sure. You know what? It'll still scare the shit out of me, but whatever. Why would I go out of my way to be like, oh yes, demon basement plates? Like,
Can I offer an alternate explanation? If someone tells me, and I quote, "We have a ghost of a little girl here, and she's not that malicious," you know what that is? That's a fucking demon ghost disguising itself as a little girl. Because you know what? You could never know if it's actually a little girl, if it's a fucking demon.
Very true. Now,
I'm just pointing out that for all of us playing
that
along
being
and all.
said, people that are on or within the more psychic spectrum that believe that they are more susceptible and open to sensing energies can usually tell or claim to that whether something is of light or something is of dark, and it has to do with the feeling that you get when you are around said thing. Most spiritualists, I'll hear them say like, I'm surrounding myself with only love and light, and only beings of love and light are allowed to speak with me. If you are not a being of love and light, you are not allowed to interact with me. And I mean, if you're going to believe that those are, that there are beings out there, I feel like a lot of the laws that people have prescribed to them, such as like, demons need permission in order to possess you. Like, I think a lot of that all starts to go very hand in hand. So it's like, if I'm going to go there under the assumption that ghosts are real, I'm also going to go there under the assumption of like energy protection, and knowing that like if I'm with somebody who is very susceptible to sensing energies, if they tell me they're sensing something bad, that means there's something bad. Like, and I would listen to that.
That's fair. Hey, Dustin, just so you know, it's 275, 1 to 5 people. No matter how many people, 1 to 5 people. Emma, you could cut. We could go.
No.
We could go overnight. We could go this weekend. They have availability as soon as tomorrow.
Have fun, you two. Better document it. I want videos.
I mean, Dustin was there when I told him we were going to the Sally house. You remember that, right? I told you. I was like, do you want to come? Did I ask you? I don't know if I asked you. I don't think you would. I mean,
I don't know.
It would be fun. I mean, it would be fun to go, and like something happens to you. It'd be like, whoa, of course. But I think I asked Alex, the guy who does the music for the show, if he wanted to go, and he was like, I can't. And then COVID happened the next week. Nothing happened to me at the Sally house. I can actually, say I've been somewhere haunted where people have been haunted by things on video, and nothing happened to me. And I will tell you, I was disappointed, but I wasn't disappointed enough to lie.
Right. No, and yeah, that's also important,
Right.
So speaking of which, I would consider this perhaps going into the evidence side of things. I wanted to show you a few pictures that they have on their website. And I know obviously the lovely listeners at home can't see it, so hopefully we can do a little description for them. Or you can just go to the Edinburgh Manor website and go onto the evidence tab. But so they have a few pictures. So this one. So this photo here was taken in the basement, back in the hallway, coming from the padded room. Love to hear the padded room. And here's the thing when it comes to evidence photos, especially these days, it is so difficult to tell if something is doctored, if something has been photoshopped. I have no idea, and I'm going to go in with the assumption that these have not been tampered with. So Dustin, let's look at this under the lens of this has not been tampered with in any way. Nobody's taken this through Photoshop. Nobody's done any editing. This is just, they took a picture on their phone. They didn't see this in real life. And then they took the picture and this is what showed up.
What am I supposed to see here?
It's like this. So it's an open door, and it's like this almost, it kind of like has like the outline of a body. Maybe I see like a head and a torso and like maybe an arm.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't see anything.
But there is some weird, I would describe this as like visual energy happening. It's a white light with some like blues mixed in, and like a very like wavy pattern looking like it's going through the door, through the open door. And I mean, I don't know, but I mean, that would, if I took a picture somewhere and that showed up on my phone, I mean, I don't know how I'd feel about that. How would you guys feel about that?
I would chalk it up to user error, even me.
Really?
I delete it.
Dustin. Well, that's the rightest answer.
Well,
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I don't, well, and I'm sure we're going to see a picture that it's like, and then I'm like, well, this looks like a thing, and that's got to be fake. Like, I've seen a lot of pictures of orbs and stuff before. And I will say orbs and stuff for me now in 2024, not the most overwhelming evidence. Does that make sense? And that's just a me thing. So I can concede that. So something like this for me is not really going to move the needle. And I'm someone who's more amenable to these kinds.
Absolutely. So then we have this lovely one, taken in a dark room. It looks like perhaps with flash and very blurry. But the caption reads, photo of a face in the mirror on the second floor on the men's wing, taken during an event. And so I believe this like oval thing here on the wall is the mirror, and it appears to be somebody young within the mirror.
Is it not just the person taking the picture?
That was my first thought, but I guess not.
I'm just asking because, like, that for me is like the obvious answer here, right? Like, that's just the person.
That was
taking
the first
picture.
thing I thought.
Right.
But I mean, I'm assuming if this person submitted it as evidence to the team of people that, you know, run this website,
Right.
they would be like, well, you don't look like this person in the mirror.
Right. And again, like, I get that. So, like, again, I'm assuming, like you said with the last picture, not doctored, that the person who's taking this picture doesn't look like the person in the photo.
Exactly. And this is called suspension of disbelief.
A little bit.
Because I think it's important to look at these things with the lens of as if everything is taken and presented authentically. Because I feel like the more important conversations happen when you assume people aren't inherently lying or trying to trick you. Because if you can't explain it, it's really easy to explain it away with, oh, it's Photoshop. Oh, it's altered. Oh, they had somebody stand behind the person and they're just in the room. Like, that's super easy to explain away. And I think that's boring. So instead of that, I like to assume only the best intentions and the most authentic intentions. And then how could I explain it from there? And if I can't, then I can say it's possible it was doctored. Sure, it's possible that it was some, you know, especially this first one, could be some sort of, you know, lens flare. I've never seen a lens flare like that, but that doesn't mean I'm an expert on lens flares. But I definitely think that looking at things like this with an open mind, assuming that it was all done in good faith, that is when the interesting conversations happen. So that being said, there's one more that I want to show you.
I will say in that photo you just showed the what looks like hair coming next to the face.
Oh yeah, like right here.
To me, it almost looks like as a reflection of the thing to the right of it.
Oh, I can see that too.
Yeah.
It does say that it was taken in the men's wing because it kind of looks like long hair. So I originally was like, this looks like a young girl, but that would make more sense.
So zoom in on it a little bit.
I mean, it gets blurry.
Yeah, just zoom in one more. Can you click in just one more time? Like the features look weirdly distorted. I don't know how to describe it, but like it looks, the features look very like cartoonish.
I mean, I see like a high cheek.
Right.
Nose,
it looks like it looks like a mask.
Like, you know, the drama comedy masks.
It looks like the baby.
Is there one of those in the background or, you know, on the other side of the camera?
It's like it looks like the baby doll mask from what the hell is that movie called? The Strangers?
Oh, yeah.
It's like very like distorted features. Like Dustin's right. Like even those comedy and drama masks or happy and sadness, whatever the fuck they are, those are very exaggerated features in and of themselves. It doesn't look like a guy. That's, I think, the question that
to me it looks like a very adorable pudgy child.
To me, it looks like someone with really high cheekbones.
To me, it looks like to me like a young girl, like a very young, like I'm saying, like
I see it.
6-year-old girl, like the way that the cheeks are shaped. To me,
right.
If you fill in the blanks, like I see the outline of like a face specifically, like, you know, with like leftover baby fat.
Right.
But yeah,
to quote the internet, to me, it looked like a leprechaun to me.
Fair.
Very good.
This amateur sketch.
So I want to show you one last one.
Is this one going to move the needle, you think?
I don't know. I definitely think, again, go into it with suspension of disbelief, because I think it is so easy to say, oh, come on, that's totally like, that's probably Photoshopped. But for the sake of the conversation, let's assume good faith. So this is the photo.
That skeleton's fake, sorry.
Well, fair.
Triggered.
Photo courtesy of Mysteries of the Night Paranormal, photo taken on the front steps to Edinburgh. Where you zoom in, you can see a face behind them. So I'll zoom just a little bit, but they do have a zoomed in.
Are we talking about between the guy with the skeleton and the woman on the right? Is that what we're talking about? Like, right? Yeah. Looks like, yeah.
Looks like Mike Myers.
I was about to say the same. It looks just like Michael Myers.
I can see that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
what is that? That's supposed to be a face?
Yeah. I mean, again, I can see nose, I can see eyes. This looks like a much older person. It almost looks like they have like a really big, like receding hairline.
It's what's it called when the eye sees faces? It puts together random like
Oh yeah. I mean, again,
Pareidolia?
pareidolia. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what
We
this is,
are-
right?
it very well could be. And see, like, that's what I'm saying. Those are the interesting conversations rather than, oh, it was Photoshop. Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. Like, we as humans were evolved to seek patterns and see faces where there might
Right.
not be any because it was a survival tactic,
Mhm.
staying up late throughout the night and keeping watch over our families or our tribes and keeping watch in low light situations. We are so we were able to survive as a species because we were so hyper vigilant and pattern seeking, and
Right.
being able to see faces where there potentially aren't any was a survival tactic for sure. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the quality of both of these images is pretty similar in terms of like, you can just barely kind of make out a face.
I mean,
So
the
it's hard to say.
second one looks much more like a face than the third one. That
That's
one,
fair.
but that's the thing. Like, I don't know that. Here's the thing. Like, if you look at the photo of those people and like just if you move it over to the left so we don't have to see the zoomed in thing. Like, if you didn't know that they were telling you that there was a face in there somewhere, would you have looked at that picture and said, I see something between those two people?
I might have. I don't know. It's hard to say because obviously, like, when I saw this, I saw the caption and I saw this. I mean, like, when you go on this page, it is like impossible to ignore it. Like,
Right.
it's just
You can't unsee this photo in this context ever again.
right.
I mean, the
That's
test
why I
is,
showed it to you first without it. Like, I was really careful not
But
to
we-
zoom in too far.
but the problem is like, again, like you said, there's nothing you can do about the fact that like it's on this website. So like if you
Oh,
took
yeah.
this to someone, like a completely third party person and been like, is there something in this photo? Like, just tell me if you see anything strange. And they pick this out and they say, that looks like a face. Like, that's what I wonder. Cause again, like everyone is very susceptible here because this is taken where it's taken and
Well, we
It is a
all have
face.
people in our lives. In
Yeah.
the same way that I zoomed so you could not see this photo over here, you can do that and you can test it and you can.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Why
like
not?
Because I don't know. I feel like it's not that much of a face, really. I don't know. The second one is a lot more of a face.
I would agree.
But the problem that I have is like it's in a mirror and like it's positioned exactly where the person who would be taking this picture is, to the point where you can almost even see the light being reflected onto the face of the thing from whatever they're using to illuminate in front of them. I'm not saying that wouldn't be the case anyways, but I mean, again, I don't know. If this were taken from like way off to the side and you could see a face, that would be one thing. But like you can tell that the person taking this picture or that's in this footage is like right there.
Yeah, but I also suppose that the interesting thing about that is because it says that it was taken at an event. I feel like if it was taken at a weird angle, maybe it would be easier to explain away as it was probably somebody at the event.
That's fair. That's fair.
And so for it being head on, it makes more sense to me because like you would obviously know as the person taking the photo if somebody was like right there in
Right.
front of you. But if you took it like if it was like in a weird, angle far away, it very well could be reflecting somebody from, 20, 30 feet away.
It's fair.
I mean, obviously it looks a lot closer, but it also is very blurry. So
Yeah, well, I mean, they always are. They always are. They're always blurry. That's for certain.
that is the Edinburgh Manor.
Cool. When did you say when this first started or when it first opened as a?
It was the 1910, 1911. That was when it turned into an asylum.
I've got to
And then-
believe that they were probably doing experimental treatment
Oh, most likely.
like lobotomies
Most
and
places.
electroshock, and
Yep. Most places were doing stuff like that.
that could account for a lot of deaths.
Oh, easily.
A lot of negatively charged energy too, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, I did not find anything about how many deaths happened. Like, I don't, because when it gives this number, the 230 plus, it doesn't say when or how that was documented. So was it documented from the poor farm? Was it documented from
Oh.
the poor farm and the asylum?
I'm reading it as the poor farm.
That's how I read it as well, since it came before. But then, they don't say that any deaths were documented at the asylum. But then again, it's like inevitable, right? For them being open as long as they were as an asylum that was basically open at least 90 years. And like,
people don't have to necessarily die there for it to be negatively charged energy.
Also true. Also very true.
It's not a requirement that, mass quantities of people drop dead.
But it makes me wonder, like, were they avoiding documenting death?
I mean, I'm sure any of these places probably were, in theory. Is it a success rate if people are dropping dead?
No, not usually.
So probably wasn't something they were. I mean, I would just go out on a limb to say that that's probably not something that was being reported with any amount of urgency, because again, most people were being cared for anyways. And secondly, even if they had that information, not like anybody was doing anything about it.
Right.
For 100 years,
Ostensibly. But yeah, anyway, I want to hear what you guys wanted to bring to the table.
Yeah, Dustin.
No, mine was the Van Meter monster, or also known as the Van Meter visitor. So this was what would today be described as a cryptid-like creature that was experienced in Van Meter, Iowa. So the story goes, and this is set in like early 1900s, 1903 to be exact. And so we're coming, out of the gay 90s, 1890s. That's what it's called.
Gay 90s?
Yeah.
Like 7 years removed from a bunch of people somewhere in Iowa being interred in this horrifying place that Emma just told us about.
Oh, it's the gay 90s.
But then the
People
early
suffering a couple miles away.
But then the early 1900s was a period of like progression and prosperity and people starting farms and things like that. And so town of Van Meter was just that. It was a startup town, agriculturally centered. There was a mine nearby, so there was also a mining operation. So anyway, story goes that Ulysses Griffith was coming home from a late night at work and walking down Main Street in Van Meter. And Ulysses Griffith was a business owner in Van Meter, well respected, likely part of the decision-making group of the town. Small town, by the way, less than 1,000 people.
Ooh, that is tiny.
Yeah. And he reports that he noticed a figure on top of a building and didn't think much of it, kind of crossed his mind like, what's somebody doing up there? Could it be a robber of some kind? But then
somebody just chilling on top of the building.
Yeah.
Could be a robber. I guess so.
Well,
Maybe.
then the figure turned and there was a light emitting from the figure.
Not a robber.
or just a very radioactive robber.
Yeah, right.
A bioluminescent robber. If you
Yeah.
will.
And supposedly he hollers out at this figure like, "Hey, what are you doing up there?"
No, just like that.
I hope it was just like
Early
that.
1900s, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I love it.
That's
Keep
how
it
we all
going.
talked back then.
Keep it going.
Can you do the rest of the podcast in that voice?
You have to whistle when you talk too, like an old miner. Put up fire on their roof.
And as he hollered to the figure, it vanished.
Oh shit!
Just like
And-
before his eyes. Or like to like jump down
Well,
and like
And a few seconds later, it was on top of there was a figure that appeared on a building across the street
Yeah.
with the same light coming from somewhere on the figure. And as he kind of kept watching it, it kind of went off and vanished. He went home, he went to bed, thought nothing of it.
as you do.
As
As
you
you
do in the 19. Well,
Yeah.
that was weird. I guess I'll go back to my very exceedingly normal life. Can I just say,
Living
like,
the
for the
American dream.
Can I say for the fucking record, if I went outside right now and I saw some shit on my roof jumping around, the last thing I would do is just go, I guess I'm going to bed. that was a weird
Hey,
thing.
come down from there.
Yeah. All right, you flew away or just fucking disappeared. Guess I'm going to bed now.
Good night.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I live in a house with electricity. I'm not just going to fucking bed. These yo-yos are out in the middle of nowhere. Just like, well, that thing that disappeared that had light coming out of it, which, by the way, would be in and of itself a shocking thing to see. In
Oh, yeah.
1903, like, we're thinking about this in common
What
terms.
if he had a candle or something? I don't know, a lantern?
A candle in
A
his
candle.
face?
Did he say face?
I mean, it said it was light was emanating from it. So, like, I've
Mhm.
got to assume, was it like its face or body? Or just like, was it like
But
a holy glow?
At this point, he just saw a light. It was at a distance,
Okay.
a light coming from the figure.
At this point.
At
So,
this
like
point.
I said, could be a candle.
Okay. Emma playing the role this evening of Dustin's understudy of the skeptic.
So the
Yeah,
following
we're swapping
morning,
roles.
Yeah.
Ulysses decides to tell his fellow townspeople what he saw.
The next
And-
morning, mind you, not
As
the
long as-
night of.
As long as they don't consider him a witch for it.
Nope.
Heretic, blasphemer.
He saw demons.
Yeah, take him out back and put him in a well. See if he floats. Got him.
But the townsfolk were all aghast, right?
Uh,
They
Yes, same.
I would
They-
assume so.
they
Weird if they weren't.
they had questions that he couldn't answer. He just shared what he saw, and people were kind of on edge. Like, oh my gosh, everybody at this point is still thinking could be a robber, looking for a way into these buildings to rob us.
Yeah,
And-
break-ins.
And if you think about the time of 1903, what are you afraid of back then? I mean, they don't have our experiences, obviously. So really, their fears are probably like weather, strangers, people not from the community, right?
anything
People
that
on the
affects their
roofs with
livelihood.
lights shooting out of their fucking faces.
Evidently, not too concerned about
I-
that.
Well, that's the thing. Like, genuinely, if this happened to you right now, you'd be pissed, scared out of your mind.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I just
Oh,
don't
yeah.
I don't understand the lackadaisical attitude that any of these people are having, because I feel like it's not going to be rewarded in the future. That they're just like, oh, this is fine. This is not a thing. Such Iowans, huh?
Yeah, right. See what I'm
Only in
saying?
Iowa.
If it were Nebraskans, they'd be we're gonna kill it.
Yeah, we'd be eating it.
Yeah. Well, this Van Meter
that the
thing, it
next step?
tasted good. God.
So the next and just to backtrack a little bit, it said that he saw this thing around 1 a.m. in the morning.
So dark at night.
Yeah,
Okay.
pitch black. Now this is also not that far from people having electricity-ish light bulbs. I mean, light bulbs came about in kind of the late 1800s. So this being a new town, it's likely they had access to light somehow, some way. It's a mining community,
Right,
light bulbs. Don't know, lanterns, more than likely.
They had light at night if this guy's going around at night.
Right.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So
He carries around like a candelabra, like a Victorian woman in her mansion.
This is bustle and everything. Yeah. He's like he's got his dog with him because he's going to a graveyard.
So the next day, come nighttime, there was another prominent figure within the town named Dr. Atwell, Fred Atwell, I think it was. And he reports, again, around 1 a.m., that he heard something outside his window and opened his eyes and saw light coming in through his window and kind of this like guttural noise.
Wait. So, like, sitting in bed, he saw it out of his window?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
So he got
He
up.
went back to bed.
He got up and looked out his window and saw this like figure and noticed that the light was shining from like this horn on its head.
That was not
And-
what I had on my bingo card.
So he grabs his gun, runs outside.
As we do.
He grabs his gun, runs outside. Doctor, the physician of the town, grabs his gun, runs outside and to get a good look at it and try to get a shot at it. And that's when he gives a more detailed account of what this thing looks like. He describes it as a humanoid-like figure with bat-like wings and a blunt horn with light coming from it.
Blunt
He took-
horn, eh?
He took 5 shots at it and seemingly either hit it and it did nothing or didn't hit it and ran off.
Well, like you said, he is the town physician. They weren't relying on him for food.
No.
He wasn't the town hunter. So
No.
what a shame it was this guy. At least he gave a good description.
So
Did he say how big the horn was? Like, it's a blunt horn, but like, does that mean like it had like because here's the question, right? Like,
Mhm.
what's this fucking ambulance go by? Did they say how big the horn was?
I don't recall hearing how big the horn was.
Interesting.
There's drawings of the account that make it look like very pterodactyl-like with a big old like
Oh, wow.
Corn
I
coming
want to
off
look
of it.
this up. Is it too soon for me to look up what this thing looks like?
No, not at all.
Okay, I want to do it. What's it
And I'll
called
keep
again?
talking. The Van Meter monster or visitor. It was
Don't look up the meter monster though. You might get the wrong thing.
it was changed to visitor to soften the name of it so it wouldn't scare people.
Appealing to make it more appealing to move
Yeah.
to Van Meter.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that a Quetzalcoatl?
It looks like a fucking pterodactyl.
Well, it's not far removed from what people would draw the Jersey Devil
Or like the
Honestly.
Mothman.
or the Mothman.
Because like some of these have red eyes, which is like a Mothman.
Uh-huh. And an interesting looking some of this stuff up. So that area, like the Native American tribes of the area, the Iowa, and later the Sioux, they had legends of a thunderbird, which was a winged thing with lightning eyes.
That would pick
So-
pick
It
up.
looks like a
people.
fucking Quetzalcoatl.
Well, that's one rendering. There's others, but
No, this is a
No, that's just a Quetzalcoatl.
This is-
oh, okay.
Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah, it does look like that then.
right. Like it's the way that the wings are like folded.
Yeah.
But it's not very big though, right? Like this is what, like maybe like 5 feet tall.
But yeah, they say it's like humanoid in shape and figure. I mean, it
Okay.
was their size, but it
I
had
like this
wings.
rendition. Sorry, continue.
So the doctor explains to everybody what happened. The next day around 1 a.m., not joking, around the same time, the banker of the town decided that if this is a robber, he's going to be the one to take him down. So he stayed the night in the bank.
And he
with
didn't
his-
listen to the guy before who said, like, this is, you're telling me that someone still could think this is a robber at this point?
Yep, they still think that at this point the town's kind of divided, according to articles.
Okay.
There's believers, and then there's the ones that are like, this is somebody's pulling our chain, or there's like someone trying to break into places with a light.
I have a really hard time in believing that someone would be stupid enough to be like, I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out.
So
Well,
the
don't you
town
want to be the
banker,
town hero?
Oh, yeah.
well, his motivation was to protect the town's money. That's
Right.
his job.
Right.
So he stayed the night at the bank with a shotgun, loaded it with buckshot, and fell asleep in the bank. Woke up to a light scanning the bank in the window.
Awful.
And-
Shit.
He reports that he gets up and tries to like get a better look, makes a noise, and the light shifted to him.
Oh,
At that point-
point,
At that point, he pointed his shotgun and took a shot.
at the light.
Yep.
Damn.
And apparently, like there's a glass, door there in the bank, and apparently the glass door is all shattered and everything. Doesn't think he hit it because of the glass door, but he did hear it shriek, run off, and it left a foul, just terrible odor that he describes stupefied him.
It's a weird way to describe a
What a
scent.
stupefying odor.
Yeah, stupefying.
So his shotgun, I don't know, scared the shit out of the monster, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah,
Hey.
it pooed or it pee-peed. Poo-poo, pee-pee, pee-pee or poo-poo, maybe.
That's how you know it's getting late.
I mean,
So then another account happens the next night, again
Every
in the
single night.
in the
Jeez.
middle of the night. This is like 4 or 5 nights of terror for the townspeople. And it was another business owner who lived above his business. So and that was common practice. You live above the place you work, so you just go downstairs and get to work. No work-life balance.
I would love to see it.
And
That's that American dream right there.
this is the monster that showed everyone the true meaning of a work-life balance, the Van Meter monster. You guys need to slow down with your lives.
well, and this business owner, and if you've noticed, these have all been prominent members of the town,
Right.
like business owners, physicians, bankers.
I was also going to say they've all been men.
They've all been men. Interesting that you pointed that out.
I'm just saying it's really easy to notice as a woman.
Yeah.
Bunch of cisgender white guys in Iowa saying they saw a pterodactyl. Sounds like their fragile male egos externalized. Am I right or am I right? Got it.
Somebody had to say it.
I mean, I'm here. Always.
So this guy heard something out his window, went to go look, saw a figure sitting on basically the top of a telephone pole, and opens his window, decides to take a shot. And this guy is known as the crack shot in the town. Like, he is the ace.
You got that sharpshoot.
Thank God.
And he takes a shot. Is pretty sure he hits it. He's about 15 feet away from it. So like the length of like a school bus, maybe a little less, and gets a piece of it, and it goes off somewhere. He runs outside and says he found a piece of like, chunk of it that from when he shot it. And he said it smelled like a corpse, stunk.
A chunk.
So the next day,
a chunk of meat, huh?
townspeople get together again, and they all kind of decided, we've got to, like, this is a real, torch and pitchfork moment for the town of Van Meter. Townspeople get together and they're going to get rid of this thing. So they're all convinced that it's like lives in the old mine. So they start marching to the mine. And
wow.
Yeah.
I love that.
This is a theatrical story. I'm enjoying
really
Yeah, I'm enjoying the shit out of this, man. You should do this more often. You should come around these parts more often and tell stories.
Townspeople make it to the mine, and there's not one but two figures outside the front of the mine.
And they're just like,
are they dating?
They're like, fuck, there's two of these fucking things now.
Were they
Townspeople open fire.
I'm not leaving anything to chance, boys. Get them.
It's like, stop, they're in love.
Yeah.
The figures run into the mine.
Oh, Jesus.
And they decide we're not leaving anything to chance. They dynamite the opening of the mine, closing it shut.
Oh, fuck. That's cool. And that's where this ends?
And that's pretty much where this ends.
There's like a canonical ending to this story. Weird.
They had some people camp out in front of the mine to make sure nothing showed up again. And that's kind of the last you saw of the Van Meter visitor.
Like the Van Meter Stater. It's really late.
Got him. Maybe. Kinda.
That's that good content you come here for.
The Van Meter Staycationer.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, I kind of feel bad for the Van Meter creature because, like, it, like...
He was just stinky.
He is a stinky boy. He's so stinky.
And looking for a friend.
But he had a friend.
Obviously.
You said that there were two of them, right?
Perhaps a lover.
Perhaps a Van Meter
lover.
This is
my headcanon.
They were lovers out there. They were in love. I mean, who knows? I personally, because I've been looking at pictures of the creature, I like to believe that this is them. They're like so adorable together.
They're really cute.
Look at those two.
And they want these
You want these two to be together, right? Like,
honestly, I'm kind of rooting for them.
Right? So you're telling me that the people of Van Meter, Iowa, instead of killing it and taking the bodies or doing anything reasonable, they were like, we're gonna just fucking lock them in the mine forever. Fuck them. and there you go. That was really.
And as they say, the rest was history.
And they were like, done.
All done.
And that's it. So here's the next question: why is this still? Did they say why this is still a thing? Like, why is this still a thing? If ostensibly you couldn't. You can't unprove this, I guess. The mine is probably closed up in Van Meter. And was it actually closed because of this, or was it closed for another reason? And this is just the urban legend.
So,
but I feel like there should be, if there isn't a movie about this already, there needs to be one where somebody like opens up the mine and unleashes.
It's still waiting.
Sorry, continue.
Right, it's waiting.
But
years,
so
motherfuckers.
Apparently, back in the early 1900s when this was going on, it reached national news. There were newspapers in New York City that actually had published articles about the goings-on in Van Meter, Iowa.
Wow.
And so
New York
that's
City
pretty
gave a shit
wild.
about Iowa. That's pretty big.
That's wild.
And I'm sure that people read it and just thought of it as like, oh, okay, what's Iowa? And that's a crazy story.
What a fun, creative writing prompt.
Right. But it did get me thinking, like, what could they have seen? 1903, I did some looking, and the government forced Native American tribes to move out of that same area in the late 1800s, only for a Sioux tribe that was able to buy back a bunch of land and near the same area. And I got to kind of going down the rabbit hole of that Thunderbird legend and looking at some photos and drawings of like Sioux tribal wear for what am I trying to say, dances that they did.
Oh, Dustin. Oh, is this where you're going with this?
So
no.
I kind of low-key love this though, other than
There-
hopefully the part where they don't
Don't.
die.
Yeah,
there
what the fuck?
there are images of Native American Sioux in a bird-like garb for whatever ceremony, or it could have been for a war type garb.
Right.
And, so going kind of down that path, if they were getting their land back, this town showed up since they had left. Could there have been scouts or something out trying to check out this town, see what's going on? If you think back to the first sighting, there's a figure up on a roof, and then they shows up across the street. Could have been two people, right?
Right.
Sure.
Now,
Well,
in
there's
terms
two people in this story already, so it's not even
Right.
that far to jump because two has been established as a possible outcome.
well, then I got to thinking about the light. Light bulbs existed, so it's very possible. Yeah, also, lanterns existed and mirrors existed. So there's ways to emit light. There just are. And who's to say that way they weren't equipped with that at the time of all this? The report of there being a very foul stench. Well, who knows? There's probably a lot of cow poop and buffalo poop out there. No showering. Who knows? Anything can make you stink, right?
Like a corpse, though?
Yeah, that's real stinky.
That's pretty stinky. I don't think I've ever smelled something so stinky.
Because that is the one kind of thing that's hard to explain away. What's the explanation for that?
That and the screech to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can make a noise that you wouldn't
guess
think
so,
is
like-
human in the dark.
So if you're wearing a carcass of some kind, that
Why
could
would they
stink.
why would they have to wear a carcass though?
Of an animal.
I mean, don't you like do something to make it not stinky, or is it just are like hides perpetually stinky?
Maybe
I
the
don't know.
stink is just part of the intimidation factor.
Could be too. Rub yourself in it and
I mean, again, it's dark, it's late. Maybe you're trying to imitate an animal. I mean, an animal that eats meat doesn't necessarily animals out in the wild don't smell good. Like that's just a reality of it.
if you're trying
Sure.
to scare the white man.
Yeah, I mean, again, like it's part of the scare tactic. I could see that. That's a more believable explanation than they're wearing a carcass, I think, for me at least.
I mean, my answer, like, for why it might not be is because I feel like that would just attract wolves.
Hmm.
Like, what I feel like that would be putting themselves in danger.
There
because it
aren't
would-
wolves in Iowa, though.
I don't know. Fucking
There are wolves. There are wolves in there.
coyotes? I don't know.
Yeah, but people are big. Like, coyotes aren't that big.
But you know what I'm saying.
I
Like,
get what
if
you're getting at.
If you wear a carcass, an animal carcass, I feel like you're opening yourself up to being attacked by animals.
It's fair.
But it's not immediate. Because
Fair.
it's not
Also
like
fair.
I put on a carcass and there's animals trying to eat me.
I do think this is an interesting. I do think this is an interesting path of reasoning to go down, though.
Well, and I had another one.
Oh.
And it goes back to what Emma said. These were all the prominent men in town that were seeing the same thing, all saying it happens around 1 a.m., which is odd. They're all kind of the town's leaders of the town. So
Upper
city
echelon.
city council, right?
Right.
Is this some like Illuminati shit?
So they were also all
Small town
members.
Illuminati.
They were also all members of something called like the Woodsman Society, and which is kind of turned into like an insurance company. That's a whole weird story. But this society was like a group of men.
Like
It was only
Freemasons.
men. Yep. The business owners had an insignia on their buildings for this woodsman group. So they were part of this group together. They were probably leaders of the town. I started thinking about what if this small town that's trying to become, they're a new town. They want to attract a population maybe. Could this be some sort of like cooked up marketing scheme? I mean, it made national news.
I mean, Van Meter, Iowa was in the news in New York City.
Yeah. And
that's kind of low-key wholesome in like a really
better to
stupid
get
way.
Like curiosity of this town to be like, what's going on there? We should check it out.
They blow up their own mine.
Did they though?
That's
like,
what I was asking.
That's the story.
That's what I was. What if the mine was already blown up?
Did anyone ever vet it? Did anyone ever like carbon date it? I don't know.
There's been people that have been out there, like as recent as a few years ago. The mine's been opened back up. Don't know when, but it's been opened back up. One of the videos of people going there, it's open. And
I guess nobody learned because they've released the evil unto the world. The evil had been sealed away.
Right.
And that's how we got the Jersey Devil.
That's right.
Wow.
It just moved. It just moved to New Jersey.
Right. That's what it is. So wait, okay, so you can go into the mine now. So
probably not too far. I mean, I wouldn't imagine it would be very safe.
But it is open to the public, theoretically.
Yeah.
And they've never like found any like scratches or anything on the wall to denote like that something large and possibly claw having was in there.
Nothing reported, no.
It's a bummer, you know. Kind of just wish the mine had stayed closed.
But then it makes you wonder if it were people, you know, there could be another way out of the mine.
Yeah.
It may not be the only way in and out.
Fair.
And
it's never been cited again. Like that's the thing. Like it's gone. Like the van. It's not like I mean I was maybe waiting for the moment in the story where you're like, and they reopened the mine, and then all of a sudden Van Meter, Iowa was besmirched with sightings again. It's like there's none of that because again, like I mean, how much fun is it to have a story where you're like, welcome to our town that has a cryptid? Like,
yeah. Lock your doors.
Is that like a fucking selling point? Like that feels like a script for like a Wes Anderson movie. Like, come to our town where Bigfoot lives around the corner. Like played by Willem Dafoe. Like that's, you know what I mean? That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like. Like I don't know.
Seeing Asteroid City, I do know what you mean.
Yeah, like that. I don't understand how, like, realistically, again, to go back to the idea of a rational person. Is a rational person going to move to Van Meter, fucking Iowa, because someone said there might be an alien there?
Well, it's interesting to think about what we've talked about with the Mothman, the Jersey Devil, Thunderbird, and then this is cooked up also, or there's this similar thing.
Very adjacent.
Yeah. But in 2013, they started a Van Meter Visitor Festival in Van Meter, Iowa. Of course, it's been going every year since.
Aw, that's really wholesome.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a nice ending to the story.
In Nebraska, we have a Bigfoot festival.
I love that for you guys.
We should go. I wanted to go the year of COVID, but I don't think they did it the year of COVID. I would go to the Van Meter Visitor Festival. It sounds like it could be a lark, right? It could be fun.
Could be fun.
Right, Van Meter's
go
probably
camping in front of the mine.
Yeah, Van Meter's probably only like a couple hours from here. That'd be fun. Emma, you could meet us there. We go on the Van Meter Visitor Tour, and we get to see where he was.
Is this entire podcast you guys trying to get me to come to Iowa?
Would
you go and see the mine where the creatures were locked away? I think at this point I would.
But like, what if? But like, what if?
Oh, here we go. They showed up when we were there.
Like, what if?
And we were just like, we love you so much. Our friend Emma loves you guys so much. Like, take her away, please. And that's how Emma got taken away by the Van Meter Visitor. Van Meter Visitor.
There's going to be at least 4 people that are going to be very upset with you.
Well, so that's what I wonder. So like Van Meter Visitor is kind of in the same space as like the Fresno Nightcrawler or like the Loveland Frog. Do you guys know what I'm talking about with those two?
No.
They're like they're like hyper regional cryptids. Like this is a thing that's like like you mentioned Mothman, right? But like this is like oddly specific in only one place. This only happened in one place. Like the Loveland Frog, which we had James Renner on to talk about like eons ago, only in Loveland, Ohio. Like, and the Fresno Nightcrawler, only in Fresno, California. Like those are like so specific, it's part of the name. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not just a regional cryptid, because the Mothman's kind of been seen all over the place, as it were, or the Jersey Devil, right? Like hyper regional because it's only in one place. But I kind of low key love those cryptids as a whole more than just like Bigfoot. Because as much as I do love Bigfoot, like it's like 8 million things, frankly. Like Ohio Grassman is technically a Bigfoot. Yeti is technically a Bigfoot. You know what I mean? Like this is its own thing. Are there things similar? Sure, but this is very much a specific thing in a specific place we could go visit because they have a festival about it. Because of course they do, and they probably sell toys and have like T-shirts and all kinds of bullshit. Right? I'm sure.
They get like some like bootleg Quetzalcoatl plushies and like alter them a little bit.
I mean, this reminds me in a lot of ways of when you go to the Pacific Northwest and you see like Bigfoot stuff. But again, like that's Bigfoot. Like this is such a specific thing. I don't know. I love it. I'm glad to know it's in Iowa because we could go see it. We could. It's close enough.
We could go say hi.
Right.
I feel like if the head of the townsman, if their goal was to draw people to Van Meter, it's finally come to fruition in 2013.
Aww.
That's fair. This is such a wholesome story, Dustin.
How cool is that?
I love this.
Dustin, that was
sharing.
Yeah, that had such a wholesome ending that only you could really provide. But to be fair, you're right. I mean, even if it is in the smallest of ways, like we right now are talking about Van Meter, Iowa, which isn't that did they not ultimately win in the end? Like
I didn't know they existed until like, I don't know, 25-ish minutes ago.
Right.
So.
And I've looked more into it now than I probably ever would have if they had never done something like that, which most towns haven't. I honestly think that's probably what it was now.
That's long game marketing right there.
I mean, but here's the thing, like you've got to assume that they were living in the time of P.T. Barnum, right? Like that's the thing, like sensationalism does sell. And if you have, it is weird to me, Emma, you mentioned the female thing, like it's all the town elders effectively. Like that's a little fishy to me.
They're all part of the same society.
Right. Like again, like I think that's less unbelievable than anything else to think that a bunch of the old white dudes in the town were like, what's the easiest way we could get people to take notice of Iowa in our town? Cook up some bullshit about a dinosaur flying around, because that's essentially what it is.
Now let's all get our stories straight.
A glowing dinosaur.
A glowing dinosaur. And then, again, like I mentioned the thing about the ending, like, you know what? If you can claim that the mine got blown up and those fucking things are dead, you can kill two birds with one stone. You can say we're a town on the move, moving away from mining and doing other things. So come here. And also the monster's gone. So you don't have to worry about it, but you can live in the town that everybody has heard of that had this monster. So that has put us on the map, but at the same time, like we don't have to worry about the threat of it because it's in the mine and the mine is closed and we're never going to open it until 2013 when, again, the town elders probably would never have thought in a million years that people would embrace it. That's the thing they probably never would have anticipated.
Well, and the first guy I mentioned, Ulysses
Griffith.
The business he owned was a farm implement store. So if they're trying to turn into more of an agricultural community, here's a guy who sells the agricultural stuff and trying to draw people into town. Well, that's going to benefit him.
The doctor going to have more patients. The fucking banker going to have more money.
It just seems all too convenient.
Yeah. Well, when you add those pieces of information, it really changes the way the story can be interpreted. But at the same time, I mean, you gotta love a community for having some weird ass bullshit just cooked up to be like, well, but that's the thing, like, is that crazier than like anything else? Like, I guess not really. Like the biggest ball of twine, the world's biggest squirrel made out of concrete. Like, is that any different than our claim to fame is something we made up versus like Texarkana, where they have a yet to ever be solved masked killer? Like, no, that wasn't their choice, but that put them on the map. I guess if you want to choose it, I guess a pterodactyl's not a bad thing to choose, I guess.
Well, then that begs the question, were all the townspeople in on it? Or was it just this group and they terrified their community for 5 days?
I mean, again, if you know at the end of it that you're going to make the thing go away, I don't think, like, I don't know. I think if the three of us were having to make this decision, I think you could get to the point where even Emma, who is probably the most morally just out of the three of us, would be able to be convinced that the ends might be able to justify the means here.
I mean, perhaps to an extent.
Right? Like, it's like,
Maybe.
it's not the end of the world to scare the people in your town if you're going to have an escape hatch at the end where you're like, and we got rid of it. See, we did our job.
And
Again.
here's the other thing on the timeline. The first sighting was September 29th, and it lasted for 5 days into October. What holiday is close to that?
It's fair.
Yeah.
Halloween.
I mean, again, like, and that's
Just
the
in
other,
time for spoopy season.
right?
Mhm.
And that's the other thing. It only lasted 5 days. Like, tell me another cryptid that's like this, that they have like, and then we blew it up and it was
And
gone.
we killed him.
Yeah, like that to me is a very weird ending to that part of the story because that's just not a thing that you hear in these kinds of stories. You don't hear we killed it, that's why it's gone. It's just like, oh, it's gone because no one ever saw it again. Like there are so many cryptids that are just we haven't seen it in a while, not we killed it. Like, when was the last time you heard someone say I killed Bigfoot? That's why we don't see him anymore. That's the craziest part of this story for me, is thinking that like that might actually answer what this is. Because if you have that part of it, like I said, there's nothing to be scared of. Theoretically, there's nothing to be scared of. It is just a gimmick. I mean, think about Roswell,
was.
right? Like it's the same thing.
And if all this was just a gimmick, I like the addition of the detail of, and it was stinky.
Yeah, big stinky.
It had lethal farts.
I mean, again, like it's just like one of those things where it's like, well, you wouldn't want to get near it, you know, so stay away from it.
Yeah. All the more reason to stay back.
Yeah. But again, if they even saw anything, like again, if they all just agree, like we've said, if they all just agreed that they saw something, let's just get our stories straight. What did we all see? Because I mean, that's the other thing. Like they wouldn't have seen anything. They would have literally just been sitting in their fucking beds, right? And then the next morning being like, you won't believe what I saw last night. Well, I mean, it makes...
Because, why was he so not freaked out?
I mean, again, I pointed that out in jest, but I do answer that question now maybe on my own, which is because there was nothing to be scared of to begin with, because you knew the whole time that you were just making this shit up. And yeah, if you're making this shit up, there is no immediacy. That it explains the lack of immediacy. And I don't want to be the person to like debunk shit, like you said, Emma. It's not fun, but at the same time, isn't that way more interesting to have a town just like kind of committing fraud wholesale? I mean,
Altogether.
That shit straight out of a movie. Like that would be.
It sounds
kinda,
like it.
That's kind of why I loved this story when I was looking stuff up. I was just like, it's so funny. And the more I looked into it, I was like, and I kind of subscribe to the latter here of the townspeople cooking this up, but and that is just funny to me, that the lengths they would go to prosper.
Well, just put their name on the map, even if it is for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
like we've said, like if you're able to get in the major news in 1903, like that's pretty impressive. Like even now, that would be impressive, but in 1903, like Van Meter, Iowa. That's not even a place that if you ask someone where's Van Meter, they wouldn't say Iowa immediately. Like that's the other thing. It's such a unknown place outside of everything else. So
come on down to Iowa and meet the heroes of Van Meter.
Yeah, that blew up the mine with the monster inside, killing it and taking away our hopes and dreams of ever meeting a monster. Because apparently that's the thing. It's like the more fun explanation is that there was a monster and that it was there, and that they were all scared shitless, and the monster died because the townspeople killed it. That's the much more fun interpretation. But
and I gotta believe they acted all this out too. Like these guys led the mob, and
we're going to get the monster. We'll be back.
there's 2 figures down here. Don't come any closer.
Yeah, it's like off screen choking yourself. I've got him. He's got a hold of me. Help! Hey, yeah. I mean, that shit would be fucking hilarious. Hey, you know what it kind of reminds me of? It's like a mirrored version of the thing that Orson Welles did. It's like that, but intentional, you know, because it was like, well, I'm going to scare the shit out of people, but I'm not trying to do it intentionally. These people like, you know what would be really funny is if we scared the shit out of the townspeople for 5 consecutive evenings. God.
I mean, you're right. This should be a movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Should. We're sleeping on the Van Meter. The Van Meter visitor softens the blow. Yeah, the man eater visitor. That's a different kind of monster. So on that note, Emma, Dustin, thank you both so much for joining me for doing one of these haunted states. Like I said, we had never done one before, but I don't know. I'm looking forward to doing them again because getting to talk about these kind of things is fun, and I'm always up for cryptids. For me, cryptids, one love, the love of the cryptid. And that's where we'll leave it. So until next time, you can hear Dustin and I and Emma over at scarystorieswetell.com, where we do more or less just SurrealTube up until this point, but who knows what we'll be doing past here. But SurrealTube is the thing the three of us do, where we talk about YouTube content, and sometimes we even get to talk to the creators. So yeah, check that out over at Scary Stories We Tell. And for other audio diversions, weirdingwaymedia.com is where you can go to find this show, Bollywood Cinema Club, which Dustin is on. We recorded those episodes months, if not years ago, but they're still airing. Chronologically, they're still airing. So you can find those with a whole lot of other things that I'm not on, which are better than most things that I am on, like 80s TV Ladies, Feminine Critique, Twisted and Uncorked, who are, keeping the funny with the true crime. So yeah, all those can be found at weirdingwaymedia.com. As for this show, scarystorieswetell.com. Big thanks to Dustin, Maggie, and Alex, all who helped make the show sound and look a lot better than it has any right to, because I am immensely untalented when it comes to those kinds of things, and they are not. And as always, we'll let our good friend, the former host of Sightings, Mr. Tim White, lead us out.
No mystery is closed to an open mind.